Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the webcast 3 Ways to Win Quality Talent, sponsored by Symphony Talent and presented by Michael Dreyer and Shannon Siri. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you that this webcast has been pre-approved for HRCI credit and can also be used for SHRM credit. Please be sure to attend the complete webcast in order to receive your credits. After the webcast, you will receive an email from HR.com within 1 to 2 business days, and it will include the certification credit information for you. You can also log into HR.com and go to your View My Credits page, where you can see the credits you have received. If you have any questions today for our presenters or for HR.com, please type them into the Questions tab on your GoToWebinar control panel, and we will follow up with you. It is now my pleasure to turn it over to our presenters, Michael and Shannon.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the webinar, 3 Ways to Win Quality Talent, how to use personalization to drive an exceptional candidate and employee experience. Also, be sure to join us in the discussion on Twitter. You can live tweet today with us. You can tweet us at Symphony Talent with an underscore at the end, and also use the hashtag digital transformation. Your presenters today are myself, Shannon Siri. I'm the SVP of Strategy at Symphony Talent, and also my colleague Mike Dreyer is the SVP of Strategy and Client Services at Symphony Talent. Over the next hour, we're going to cover 3 ways that you can drive an exceptional candidate and employee experience, including how to use and keep candidates engaged through relevant and personalized content, how to use drip campaigns to drive and maintain that engagement, and finally, how to leverage a checkout style application process to meet the increasingly consumer-like expectations of today's job seekers. So with that, Mike, go ahead and get us started.
Sounds good. Thanks, Shannon. Welcome, everyone. I like to start by using the Amazon metaphor. I'm actually based in Seattle, so Amazon's actually in my backyard, and I'm well aware of the Amazon model, but I think it's appropriate for the talent acquisition space. It's something that we talk to clients about quite a bit at Symphony Talent. But if you think about Amazon's model, right, it's not the e-commerce leader because it's got the most stuff that you can buy, or even because it has the lowest prices. Amazon's the leader, and why it's been so disruptive and why it's redefined how consumers shop, because Amazon creates an experience, and not just at the front end, start to finish. So a lot of what we're going to talk about today are some of those principles that Amazon has employed for quite a long time and why they're so good at what they do. Amazon uses data to drive relevancy, and that's what we're talking about today. If you think about sort of, how you may use Amazon, how I use Amazon, I think about my data profile with Amazon today, right? Amazon knows that I love things like golf. They know that I like to work out in my yard and do gardening. They know that I probably have, a 4 or 5-year-old toddler based on all of my activity on their site, what I've purchased, what I've searched for, what I'm clearly interested in. And not just who I am today as a consumer on Amazon, but how vastly different it was maybe 5 years ago when I wasn't married, I didn't have a child, I wasn't mowing lawns, I lived in a condo. And I think about the experience that Amazon gives me today and how it's vastly changed over the years. It's a much different experience, and it's much more relevant to who I am now compared to who I was back then. And so that is a metaphor that we like to use when you talk about creating exceptional candidate experiences start to finish. Make no mistake, this isn't a lecture on how if you go hire 100,000 of the greatest software developers in the world, you too can create Amazon for your prospective talent. We want to give you practical things that you can do applying Amazon-like principles to your talent acquisition strategy, not just to get ahead and win, but frankly, keep up with the times. So reinventing products, services, and engagement to meet the evolving expectations of the digital, social, and mobile natives, or as I like to say it, just people today, right? What do we mean when we say that? We talk a lot about what's called the consumerism of recruitment, and a lot of it, again, points back to what we just discussed with Amazon. You think about your experiences as a consumer, right? And how some of those marketers like Amazon and other retailers give you what is quote unquote a best in class experience, right? You're constantly served seemingly relevant ads targeted to your persona. Your social profiles, which 81% of the population has at least one, are commonly leveraged to receive relevant content or serve relevant content to you. You typically receive product recommendations that seemingly know what it is that you want. And hopefully, when you do decide to buy something after being interested and going through your research process, you're presented with a very fast checkout experience. And this is what we're really talking about when we talk about reinventing your approach to talent acquisition. It's understanding that consumers today are not just consumers in the traditional sense that they are out there to buy things, but they're consumers of information, digital content, personalized content, what we're talking about today. And consumers are no different than job seekers. They're the same people. They process information the same way, and they make decisions on jobs in many ways very similar to how they make decisions on how to purchase products. I like to point to a Gartner study actually completed earlier this year that said in 2018, organizations that have fully invested in personalization will outsell companies that have not by 20%. So organizations, consumer-driven organizations, understand the power and the impact of driving relevancy through things like personalization. And again, candidates consume information just like consumers do. So from becoming initially interested in your employer brand to engaging with your company and ultimately converting into an active job seeker, that follows a very similar path as purchasing products and services. So why should we treat them differently? The answer is we shouldn't. And that's what we hopefully want you to get out of what we're going to present today. So we have a poll question to begin with. Shannon, if you want to go ahead and issue the poll.
Yep, absolutely. So we're going to go ahead and launch this. What is your biggest challenge in converting quality talent? We want to hear from you. We know it's probably going to be hard to choose just one, but is it the candidate and the application experience, communicating your EVP, getting the most out of your technology, competition with other companies, or data gaps? We'll go ahead and give it a minute while you guys complete the poll, and then we'll take a look at the results.
I think it'd be fair to say too, there's no right or wrong answer here. All very valid.
All right, we'll just give it another 15 seconds here. All right, we'll go ahead and close the poll. And here you can see the results. So by a landslide, the audience finds their biggest challenge in converting quality talent to be competition with other companies. I think that that's probably apropos for the 3 ways to win quality talent that we're going to cover today, because investing in your candidate experience through personalization and providing the kind of experience that these 3 tactics can provide, I think will really set you apart from most of your competition out there. We've got candidate and application experience in at 24%, and then communicating EVP, getting the most out of technology, and then data gaps kind of are far behind, under 10%. So really competition with other companies and then providing a great candidate and application experience are the top 2.
So competition with other companies, that's obviously a very top of mind topic for you all, and I think that's a natural transition to what we want to talk about next, and that's how to be disruptive, how to leverage technology to be really a catalyst to change. I think some of you may have heard the quote, "The war on talent is over, talent won." And really it speaks to kind of the current talent landscape. And in order to be disruptive, what we really believe wholeheartedly here at Symphony Talent is that you really need to understand what you're dealing with, what the current talent landscape is, not just in general, but as it relates to your specific business needs, your specific recruiting goals. But just to give you sort of a lay of the land in terms of why this is all important, we all know that the current employment market conditions are historically low unemployment rate. As a result, companies that you're all talking about competing with, on average, are spending 50% more on recruiting since 2014. Burson by Deloitte did a study recently that tried to estimate this, and they estimate that the recruiting industry as a whole in the United States today is in excess of a $250 billion annual expenditure. So companies today, more than ever, are spending more to try to remain competitive and to try to get ahead on the best quality talent. I'm sure you've all heard this generation called millennials. Millennials are increasingly becoming more of the workforce. By 2025, they estimate, the BLS estimates that millennials will be 75% of the workforce. And it's important to understand niche audiences. It's important to understand mass segments of your targeted audience as well, like millennials, because there are certain elements of these audiences that are critical to understand why they're unique and what really makes them tick, and how you have to communicate with them to really get ahead. For example, millennials, 21% of them changed jobs in the last 3 years. That's 3 times the average rate of all other groups. And part of the reason why, again, is because of the current market conditions. But overall, job seeker confidence is at an all-time high, and job seekers are connecting to you, the employers, when, how, and where they want. Some additional information to take in consideration. 59% of candidates want to get to know an organization as a company, as a culture, and as a place of employment. 32% fear that they'll never find jobs that match their personalities. And when we talk about things like user-generated content, content marketing, user-generated content converts people on average 4 times higher than paid marketing and advertising. So what we're talking about in terms of practical use and practical terms, what this all solves for is more engagement, less people bouncing, less people becoming disengaged with your company or your brand, in the form of shorter sessions on your career site, interaction with your media, with your social content marketing, with your career site, less content viewed, and overall lower conversion rates because, again, when you create kind of broad statements and broad messaging to all audiences, regardless of who they are, this statistically shows that people are less to convert when you don't attempt to at least personalize that experience and speak directly to them. So these are all things that we take into consideration when we develop strategies for clients, and why it's important to understand what the total landscape is. Now, how job seekers behave specifically in digital environments like the career site, this is what we've seen pretty consistently across the board of all the career sites that we monitor at Symphony Talent. We see a very small amount of time spent on the homepage of the career site, generally because the career site homepage, by and large, isn't personalized. There isn't a whole lot of content there. It's meant to drive people into a destination and then get them to where they need to be quickly. But there are opportunities to create a much more personalized and dynamic experience on the homepage to increase that engagement and time spent on it and make that time useful. 90% of all page views on a career site either happen on the homepage, on the job search page, or on the job details page. So when we talk about creating a truly dynamic and personalized experience, we really focus on those three areas. Now, most clients, most recruiting organizations have lots of other content on their career site that they want job seekers to learn about, right? There's lines of business pages, there's culture pages, there are, employee story pages, there's benefits pages that all have really attractive and unique things about them that job seekers should know about. But the statistics don't bear the fact that people really go to those pages. So what we try to do is we try to bring that content to the job seeker in those places in that 90% area, instead of asking them to go find that information. Again, think about the Amazon metaphor, right? If you had to go search for all of that content on Amazon, if they didn't automatically present that to you or recommend that to you based on having deep insights into you as a consumer, Amazon would not be as effective. So we're trying to apply those very similar types of principles in the recruitment space, specifically here in the career site experience. And then 30% returning users. So a lot of returning users. For some companies, that's significantly higher as well, where you're a very recognizable brand name, and you've naturally got a lot of brand fans, people that want to work for you and consistently come back time after time to see if there are opportunities. And that's an opportunity also to present a personalized experience and give returning job seekers not just the same experience that they received the first time or the second time, but an evolving experience as we have the ability to collect more information on them. So 4 main principles when we talk about personalized content, what we try to really drive with personalization. I know that personalization may seem like kind of a daunting topic. It may sound like something that is technically very difficult, but it doesn't have to be. And it can be truly iterative. It can be something that you can build on over time. But through that journey, we really want to drive 4 things. We want to drive relevance, so that the content that we are presenting to users is relevant on who they are. In practical terms, in talent acquisition, that means what type of job seeker they are, what line of business that they're qualified to work in. We want it to be authentic. We don't want it just to be owned content or certainly paid content that corporate puts out. We also want it to be user-generated content or authentic stories about employees using quotes in their own words. We also want it to be dynamic. What we mean by dynamic is kind of what I just said, right? It needs to be ever evolving, so that if I go to a career site and look at an opportunity today, if I look at it again in 2 months, hopefully it's a little bit different because it understands who I am and it knows that I've been there before. So dynamic versus static is another very critical element to personalization. And then it has to be intuitive, right? It has to be easy to use. It has to be something that's smart, leverages things like artificial intelligence, machine learning. It has to replicate decision making in some cases, to make it easier on the user, to make it easier on the recruiter as well. So some examples of how we've done that for some of our clients. We're just going to kind of flip through some of these. But we have leveraged personalization with clients in many different verticals. This is UCLA Health out of Los Angeles, obviously a large healthcare system, who is now leveraging personalization in many different ways by occupation. The screen on the left is a personalized version of their homepage for people who are not local to the area. So there's some really engaging content about quality of life aspects, living in Los Angeles. Obviously, there are some really attractive things about living in LA and the climate. And so they create that experience for their potential job seekers based on where they're coming from. We also have some examples of content marketing that we've put out on Facebook that also drives home that authenticity factor. Another example is Fiat Chrysler, so obviously a large automobile manufacturing company here in the United States. This is an example of what's called a dynamic job description or enhanced job description. So if you think about kind of your job descriptions maybe today on your career site, typically job descriptions are just sort of verbatim text from the applicant tracking system, and there isn't a whole lot of branded or dynamic content. And what FCA has done in this case is brought in dynamic content to the specific job. So this is an IT security position, and FCA is serving the user IT appropriate imagery and some other dynamic content around IT jobs specifically automatically to the user based on that specific job. So if you think about that, again, going back to the Amazon metaphor, if you went to Amazon and you looked for something like a TV, and all you received from Amazon was a bunch of text about why this was a great TV and why you should buy this TV, you probably wouldn't buy too many TVs on Amazon. Amazon is giving you lots of really rich and dynamic content about all their products. You can view the product from multiple angles. Typically, you can watch videos on the product. You can read reviews from people who have purchased the product. You can receive product recommendations that complement that product. And we've taken the same approach in the case here with FCA with job descriptions as well, so that it is a truly dynamic experience that really drives home your brand, number one, as well as some of that other content that the user typically would have to go elsewhere on the career site to find. And again, this is how we're addressing that gap in data with all those other pages outside of those three and the 90% that we showed that you really want to surface to users and bring to their attention. We've all heard about how powerful search is with job seekers now. We know that job seekers on average, about 70% start on Google. Google has entered into our space with Google for Jobs. And then you've got obviously some really established players like Indeed and other job search aggregators that are driving people directly to these pages. And often users don't visit any other page on the career site before they click off to apply. So the intent here again is to give people a very rich, personalized, dynamic experience at the job description level so that if they don't go anywhere else on your career site, you're presenting content to them that otherwise would be found elsewhere on the career site. And then from there, on the right side of the page is their personalized homepage for IT. So if you're a user, you look at this job, you're part of that 30% return visitors that come back to the FCA homepage at some point, you then receive IT personalization. And then finally, Hilton Grand Vacations, another example in another vertical being hospitality. Again, very similar metaphor here. This is an example of call center personalization and how that experience is a little bit different for mobile users. So again, we're driving relevancy based on having data insights into who this job seeker is based on their user behavior, their user activity. And we're creating a personalized experience in this case for call center employees. And again, if you're in some other area of talent, you're going to be seeing a much different experience because we're trying to create these experiences based on the specific job category that users are interested in.
Thanks, Mike. So I'll pick it up and talk through a healthcare example. We've got Northwell Health up here as one of our examples. And what this shows is that there might be content that you have that you're already creating that you could be using to personalize the candidate experience. So as Mike was just covering, you may have lots of content throughout your site that users aren't visiting because they're going right to the homepage and then to job search and job search results. But you might have really great content that you actually want to surface. And so for our example here, Northwell Health actually publishes a careers blog. They use it to post company news, employee highlights, information on the amazing work they're doing every day within healthcare. But Northwell not only is publishing this content to their blog, share it out to social media, and they target it to the would find that information the most relevant. So for example, if they're blogging about their nursing team, they may share that information out on social media and target nurses within the local area, so that they're providing very relevant information to the audience that's going to care about it the most. But additionally, they actually use this content to further personalize the candidate experience on their website. By doing exactly what Mike was talking about, they integrate this content into the homepage, into their enhanced job descriptions in a contextually relevant way. Meaning that if we know somebody on the Northwell site has done a search for nursing jobs, then when they come back to their homepage, that homepage is not only going to be personalized to have imagery that speaks to a nurse, but they're also going to integrate some of these blog posts and this content that's going to be contextually relevant into that homepage. If somebody is looking at a nursing job and enhanced job description, they won't only see the job details information, the responsibilities and skills, they'll also have this nursing related blog content that is, the whole point is to give them really rich information that is hopefully going to be the kind of detailed information that the candidate needs to make a career decision. So in sum, we're really looking at ways to be able to use rich content that you might already be producing as a way to bring relevant information into the candidate experience in the ways that they're already interacting with your careers pages in a very highly personalized way based upon the behavior on your site. And then also continuing to amplify it through retargeted social campaigns and targeting your audiences within social media. I also want to switch gears a little bit and to take a look at personalized content from a different angle. And what that is that's content and stories about the work experience that are actually shared by your employees. Your employees are the ones that are taking that information and they're sharing it out with their connections and their networks out on social media. And so giving a very personalized view into the work experience of one of your employees. This is something that isn't often talked about in personalization, but it's an extremely important side of it. As we see year after year that any of the studies that are out there that measure the idea of trust, they find continually that someone who is a person like yourself, somebody who is an employee of an organization, is a much more credible source of information about a company. It's more trusted. And so enabling your employees to share careers and employer brand related content from their personalized point of view is another way to be able to provide a more personalized candidate experience. And I mean, as you've heard and we've highlighted throughout the webinar so far, is candidate expectations are closely mirroring that of consumer expectations, right? Candidates are consumers. There's no reason why their expectations would change just because they're now searching for a job. And just as we as consumers tend to trust the personal stories and reviews about products, we have the same trend here where job seekers are trusting the personal stories and the reviews that they hear from your employees on the work experience. So candidates are not only influenced by information that they find actually having your employees, in the example we have up here, one from one of our clients, United Health Group, and then also a Symphony talent example, job seekers are much more highly influenced by information and that personalized point of view, that personalized peek behind the curtain that you're getting from an actual UX designer at the company or from our CEO at Symphony Talent than they are from brand messaging. Your employees are more influential, and so enabling them to be able to share relevant content through their lens is another way to be able to personalize the experience for candidates. So that was number one. Now we're going to go on to the second tactic to be able to personalize and engage candidates. So the second way to win quality talent is to leverage drip campaigns. And we're going to talk about ways that you can leverage drip campaigns by leveraging your talent network or profile information that might live in your CRM if you have one, ways to deliver targeted communications based upon that information, and then also drip campaigns and campaigns that are responsive to the behavior of the user. So they actually learn and they change based upon how the user is interacting with them. So you might not know what a drip campaign is, so I'll just take a second to explain what that is. Candidates are, as you know, are very easily distracted. Many candidates are passive. When they're interacting with your brand and with your career website, they're often not necessarily ready to convert and apply. And so what drip campaigns are is they're marketing campaigns that use tactics that you're probably already really familiar with from consumer marketing. And they use candidate profile data and machine learning to essentially transform kind of every touch point with that candidate into an opportunity to nurture them and to engage them. So to kind of illustrate this, for a candidate who's not ready to apply, you could continue to engage them and kind of keep the conversation going with them until they are ready to make a decision. And the way that you could do that is through an intelligent drip campaign. So when I say tactics that you're probably familiar with from consumer marketing, think about how after you view a product on Amazon, how it then follows you around the web. And everywhere you go, every site you're on, if there's banner space, if there's advertising space, you will tend to see that product over and over until you finally break down and buy it. But you can also think about email marketing as well. Have you ever been in the middle of a transaction and didn't finish it and later received, and actually shouldn't even say later, sometimes within minutes, received an email from that retailer saying, hey, you didn't finish your transaction. Why don't you come back and finish checking out and buy what's in your cart? So those tactics of being able to retarget and to follow candidates around the web, to be able to use email to know where somebody was in their funnel or in the process, and to then continue over time to try to convert them and to move them further along. So for example, you might invite a candidate who's on your career site to subscribe to your talent community or to a newsletter. And then once that candidate has subscribed, if they don't go and finish an application, you can actually leverage the information that you've now collected in that candidate's profile to automate really highly personalized and relevant touch points. So in the example that you see on the screen, we have a candidate who we'll call her Maria, and she may have been on your career site. She's not ready to apply, but she did join the talent community. We actually know what jobs she looked at. We know a little bit about Maria based upon the information that she gave us when she joined the talent community. What we can then do is we can enter Maria into a drip campaign that is pre-structured, or it's put together to deliver a predetermined set of emails. But it's not just necessarily a sequence of emails. Those emails will actually learn based upon Maria's behavior. So we might put her into these initial sets of emails, but depending on what she actually interacts with or what she engages with, that then triggers a different action. So if there is a specific call to action that Maria engages in within the email, then we might know that she's interested in a certain piece of content. Maybe it's benefits about the company. Maybe it's information about relocation. And if we know that she clicked on it, we can then trigger what the next email is going to be based upon her behavior and what we know that she's now interested in. And all of this is automated. And so through kind of automation and machine learning, we're able to deliver a very highly personalized kind of experience. And that content is continuing to tailor based upon Maria's behavior. And so more and more, she'll actually become, hopefully, more engaged with your brand as we continue to give her the information that she's interested in. So we can continue to follow Maria, like a great pair of shoes will follow you after you view them on Amazon. And we can follow her through retargeting with banner advertising. We can follow her through retargeting with social media, and also the email campaigns that we're talking about. And as we learn more and more about her interests, we can then start to deliver her personalized job recommendations. So earlier on, it's more about kind of gaining that awareness and getting that engagement and getting Maria interested so that we're transforming her from someone who might have been lukewarm, maybe passive, was interested in your brand and maybe interested in you as an employer, but wasn't necessarily looking for a job, right? She was still passive. We can use drip campaigns to really transform her into more of an active candidate and somebody who is ready to receive and react positively to a job recommendation that is highly personalized to her because we already know what her interests are. I also want to cover kind of another angle of drip that you often don't hear about, and it's really a way to be able to apply the concept of a drip campaign to social media. Currently, most campaigns are kind of a single ad unit, right? So you'll put a promoted post out there on Facebook, and you'll promote that one ad unit, that one promoted post. Typically, for most of our clients, they will do it in this fashion, and it becomes what we would consider to be a just-in-time kind of campaign, right? So it's something in support of maybe a hiring event or a specific hiring need. And what we're actually recommending is that you apply the concept of drip as a way to what I would call prime the audience, so that you're gaining awareness with an audience, you're telling a story, you're engaging them with content and information before you're asking them to convert and come apply. So slowly you can actually run campaigns and prepare for them over several weeks, or in some cases even over several months, depending on the audience that you're going after. And you can run multiple ads or multiple promoted posts, highly targeted promoted posts out there in social media that builds a story, that slowly builds a story over time. So these are just 3 examples and that we have on the screen, but we would probably end up doing more if this was a real execution. But it just gives you a sense of, if we were out to recruit nurses, that we don't necessarily just want to go out there with ad number 3, where we're saying, hey, come apply right now. We know that nurses as a target audience are a very highly sought after audience. They're definitely getting recruited all the time. And we actually need to spend some time priming that audience before we just say, hey, come apply, because most nurses already have jobs. So we want to instead have a whole sequence of posts that would go out there, maybe talking about, in this example, Nurses Week, having a couple of posts in between that talk about the opportunities at this organization, why working as an RN at this organization is different, some of the perks, specifically telling employee stories, also having RNs at the organization sharing this information out with their networks as well, so that when the time comes where they've got the critical need to then make hires, the audience has been primed over a couple of weeks, and at that point you can start to put out there ads that are more looking at conversion and going for the activity of conversion. So this is a way to be able to apply the idea of drip and storytelling through the sequencing of promoted posts within social media as well. So with that, we'll go on to our 3rd tactic. Mike, do you want to cover the checkout experience?
Absolutely. So the checkout experience is critical. Again, if we think about the Amazon metaphor and why Amazon is so good, is because what they do is not just create an experience at the front end, but they also create an end-to-end experience all the way through from checkout to post-purchase. And that's really what we're talking about when we say checkout, or as it relates to talent acquisition, we're talking about the apply process as well as post-apply process, and how we can specifically streamline that, how we can integrate it in some cases, how we can make that accessible on any device. And then when people complete their application, what are we offering to the candidate, to the job seeker, in terms of post-apply communications. So again, not to beat a dead horse here, but again, looking at a best-in-class experience that we're all accustomed to with Amazon, right? And in some cases, it's even easier than what you see here. So when you do receive a relevant ad on Amazon that's directly relatable to something that you're interested in, you click on it, you land on Amazon's site, you add it to your cart, In some cases, you don't even have to log in or add a password. It automatically has you logged in through the app. Within 1 to 2 clicks, you can purchase your product. And while that may not be, 100% able to replicate in the talent acquisition space as it relates to the job application, there are certain things that we can do to greatly enhance that experience for job seekers. And it's a challenge that we hear quite a bit from our clients at Symphony Talent. We create these, incredible, memorable brands. We create these awesome candidate experiences on the career site. We employ these media strategies that really maximize efficiency and precise targeting. And then we get people to the point of sale, right, or the point of application. And we take them to a different experience, which is often the applicant tracking system. And it's a disjointed experience. It's an experience that is vastly different than the experience that the job seeker received prior to getting to that point. And in many cases, it's a very tedious experience. It's not accessible on all devices. It requires people to take multiple steps to complete, and sometimes that application can take, in excess of 30+ minutes. And this is really how we're treating job seekers as a whole. And again, if you thought about that in terms of the consumer experience, we would be very frustrated consumers. We wouldn't buy a whole lot of products online if that was the experience that we were presented. So these again are principles that we can apply to the talent acquisition space. And how we do that specifically at the application is integrating with the actual career site. So think about, again, that disjointed experience of having an application or an ATS sitting in one environment and having your career site sitting in another environment. There are possibilities, and there is the ability to actually bring those together. And it doesn't mean purchasing an end-to-end solution. It means doing an integration and bringing that apply experience into a career site. So it's a more seamless experience. It's an experience that you can track and monitor a lot better. And you can do things like drip campaigns, or you can do things like automated emails at the point of drop off to encourage people to complete their application. We've all seen that in the consumer world when you start to buy a product and you get kind of halfway through purchasing it. But for whatever reason, maybe you want to think about it, maybe you get distracted and you don't follow through with your purchase, you seemingly receive an email saying, hey, there's still time to purchase what's in your cart. We have the ability to do the same thing with the job application. And this is how you cut through those challenges of candidate drop-off, of people that you've gotten to the point of sale, you've engaged them, you've piqued their interest, they've seen, they've researched your company, they've looked at a job that's relevant to them, and they're ready to apply. But for whatever reason, that application process gets broken. We have the ability, if we create a seamless application experience, to capture that person's information and remarket to them with the hope of getting them to finish their application. And it's an opportunity not just to capture drop-off, but really data at every point. So it's an opportunity to really look at your application process and look for clear trends in terms of where users may be potentially dropping off. Could it be a screening question? Could it be a certain step in your process? And using that type of data, you're able to obviously augment your application process to make it better for users, so that you hopefully can capture more people who are interested and qualified to work for your organization. And this is how, again, best-in-class consumer organizations use that type of data to create better checkout experiences. And then post-apply or post-checkout, what are you offering your job seekers? Again, if they want to understand what their status is as it relates to their application, is their application under review? Has it been rejected? Is it, you know, being processed for the next step? Are you being scheduled for an interview? Typically, those types of status updates happen again from kind of a disjointed experience from the ATS. And we do have the opportunity to bring that type of information into your brand or career site experience as well, which is what you sort of see here on the right side of the page. So think about those checkout experiences, those post-apply experiences that you offer to your job seekers. Is it seamless? Is it connected to your overall experience from start to finish? Is it easy to use? Is it easy to navigate? Does it keep people in the loop? Does it keep them informed? Again, now we're at a point where Amazon will not only drop off a product on your front doorstep and tell you when that product has been delivered, they'll even unlock your door and drop it inside your house, or they'll take a picture of the product as it sits on your front door now. So again, we want to give you some sort of practical things to think about that you can certainly borrow or take from those best-in-class consumer experiences and potentially employ them in the talent acquisition space to convert high-quality talent better and faster.
Right, so in sum, those are our 3 ways to win quality talent. Really focusing on serving the relevant content with rich information that a candidate needs to make a career decision and to move them along in the recruiting process and in the recruiting funnel. Finding ways to be able to integrate that rich information in a highly personalized way into the career website experience, into your emails, into social media. Essentially, every touch point is an opportunity to serve relevant content to a candidate based upon information that you already know about them from their search behavior, from the behavior on their behavior on your site, from maybe candidate profile information. And by personalizing your content, you really are letting candidates know that you're interested in them, that you are able to provide the kind of information that they need at the right time. And by showing that level of interest and providing that level of an experience, you're having that Amazon-like type of approach that a candidate is going to be delighted by and more really coming to expect, because it's just the expectations that we have as consumers, and those expectations don't change just because we're looking for a job. You can also mobilize your employees and use your employees as a channel to be able to enable them to share your message as an employer. Let them help you tell the work experience story. Let them tell the story through their own eyes of what it's like to work for the company. They are a highly trusted source of information, and they have networks and colleagues where they can share that information out and amplify it through their networks in a way that is going to be personalized through their eyes, but also extremely credible. And then, as Mike was just covering, really learn from what we consider to be best-in-class consumer-like checkout experiences for the application process. The application process is really something that is an area to stand out. When we look at what you guys shared during the poll early on in the webinar, one of the things that, or what everybody was most concerned about, it was about 60% of the group here, was competition. And so being able to provide this kind of highly relevant information, a consumer-like experience, is something that is going to let you stand out from the competition. Wrap it up.
And then just finally, just kind of building off of what Shannon said, creating a quick and easy apply process that's seamless across all the technology that the candidate interacts with. Using things like content marketing to drive engagement to the point of conversion where the interested candidate is now a qualified job seeker. And then leveraging things like automation, like artificial intelligence, machine learning, not just to deliver content, but to be conversational and authentic with it, not just cold and transactional that static content typically is.
So thank you everybody for attending the webinar. We're hoping that a lot of you have questions. There is a questions module within your GoToWebinar control panel that you can go ahead and expand. And if you'd like to submit questions, Mike and I are here to be able to answer whatever you can throw at us. That wasn't a challenge. Right. So we've got a question that actually is in here that we encounter all the time. So the question is, how do you get C-suite buy-in for sharing content? Typically where we get this question is not so much about integrating content into the career site in a highly personalized way. It's really more about employee advocacy and mobilizing and enabling employees to share content about the company with their networks. That is typically where, if there's any kind of hesitation from the C-suite, it's really around that aspect of it. And the way that we are able to successfully launch employee advocacy type programs with very large companies, I mean, some like Fortune 20 companies, is really just by having a plan. And so putting together a very thought out content strategy that lays out, here's the kind of information that's going to be created and shared, that we're going to ask employees to share. Here are the ways that we're going to enable them to share, but then also having training so that anybody who is equipped as an advocate, that they've been trained and they understand the purpose of sharing content, kind of the guardrails around ways to be able to present yourself well as a thought leader and your personal brand within social media. They've been trained in understanding a company's social media guidelines. They understand any kind of escalation procedures. Maybe if somebody comes through and leaves comments that might need escalation, by having a really well thought out plan that then in almost a playbook fashion that you can present to the C-suite to say, here's the plan, here's what we're going to be sharing, kind of the categories that it's going to fall within, how often it's going to happen, how the advocates have been chosen, the training that they've gone through, and any kind of governance that is needed. By having that all together in executive summary type playbook, that is typically how we get C-suite approval. And as I said, we work with some of the largest companies that are out there that have successfully been able to get employee advocacy programs off the ground. So short answer, there's a lot that goes into all of that, but it's truly about having a plan and making sure that people are trained. Let me see. We've got a couple of other questions. So this is relevant. Mike, I guess let me know if you want to field this one a little bit, but there is a question about balancing gaining candidate information, so getting candidate profile information and web behavior information, and any concerns about kind of data privacy.
Yeah, so first off, whatever vendor you work with, if it's a vendor, that hopefully that vendor is clear on data privacy laws and their products adhere to data privacy laws, and those laws vary, as I'm sure many know, by country. So that's the first thing is to ensure that at a basic level you are in compliance with that. From there, it really comes down to the specific company and what their own regulations are. We work with some organizations like in financial services, for example, that are heavily regulated in terms of data privacy because they own lots of financial information on people and lots of PII. So that can vary certainly from client to client. Healthcare also is very sensitive to PII and data privacy as well. So we take a very scalable and flexible approach based on the specific client requirements, but we also, at a very base level, like I mentioned, adhere to all data privacy laws.
I would also add that, you know, much of the experience that we put together is kind of candidate controlled as well. When we're capturing candidate profile information, the candidate is in control of the information that they're sharing, and they also have the ability to kind of go in and edit that at any point. I also think that this is relevant and is coming up quite a bit from a social media perspective, especially with all of the news coverage that Facebook has received around their data privacy and data being shared. One of the things that we do as kind of a regular practice is ensuring when we're trying to target candidates through social media that we want to share our content and information with. That we're very careful around the types of targeting that we use. So for example, any promoted post that is put out on Facebook tends to be targeted to the lower and upper age limits that are possible through Facebook, which then means anybody. Right, so anyone who's 18 up to 65 plus, and the plus is important, it kind of covers all age ranges. So we also kind of look at data and data privacy from that perspective as well, and kind of making sure that we're not using data that might cause kind of legal issues for targeting. But I know privacy will continue to be a big topic as we go on. Let me see. I know that there have been lots of questions around the slides and being able to download the slides. I know that the link was working, they had gotten it fixed, but I'm sure that there will be follow-up after this to be able to get the slides from the webcast. So sorry about that. I see lots of folks are having issues with that piece. Let me see if we've got anything else in here for our last minute.
I see a question about cost scalability. So yeah, the question basically is, you know, we're a small organization with very limited resources. Is there a low cost way of applying all the exciting things that we presented today? Yes, there are. Everything that we presented today can be approached kind of in modular fashion. So this isn't something that you have to kind of bite off everything in one chunk and implement. A lot of what we do, frankly, is scalable because we really need to understand what the data tells us as we implement it, and make adjustments on what our strategy is as a result of that data that we're seeing. So our starting point often when we talk to clients is to really understand what your goals are specifically. Part of that is obviously financially, what is it that, you know, we need to stick to, and then we start to prioritize based on all of those goals and parameters and requirements and all that good stuff. But to answer the question, yes, everything is scalable based on organization size, scope, all of that.
Great. Thank you. We're out of time. Thank you for your attention today. And don't forget, there will be a survey at the end, so you can give us feedback on the information that you received here today. But thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael and Shannon, for presenting this very informative webcast today. Just a few reminders for the attendees. If you'd like to view this webcast again, the archive recording will be available for up to 7 days on the hr.com website. All webcast credits are stored in your hr.com account. Please watch for your hr.com email to arrive within 1 to 2 business days. It will contain the certification credit information for you. Your feedback is important to us. Please take a moment to fill out the exit survey that will appear on your screen once the webcast is ended. This concludes our webcast. Enjoy the rest of your day.